This is continuing coverage in the trial of Alex Murdaugh from True Crime Today.
Welcome back to our continuing coverage. I'm Tony Bruschi. This is segment number 1 of day number 22 of the Alex Murdaugh trial. It is the 24th of February, 2023. Alex Murdaugh will be on the stand all day today. Let's go to our first segment.
Thank you. Good morning. Day number 24. Cross-examination. You may proceed.
May it please the court. Morning, Mr. Murdaugh.
Good morning, Mr. Waters.
All right, let's see if we can move forward with this a little bit. See if we can go back to some things we may be able to agree on.
All right, sir.
All right. First thing is that the money you were stealing, in addition to your income and the money you were borrowing, was not just to pay for drugs. Would you agree with that?
Sure.
All right. And would you agree that your stealing, in addition to the money you were borrowing, increased over the years as we moved towards June of 2021?
Repeat that, please, sir.
Sure. Would you agree that your stealing increased over the years as we move towards June of 2021?
Yes, sir.
All right. And would you admit that your stealing increased, in particular, after the boat wreck?
No, sir. I don't agree with that.
You don't agree with that?
I think I continued to do it, but I don't. As I sit here today, I don't think I took more money that I should not have taken after the boat wreck than I did before the boat wreck.
Okay.
But again, those documents speak for themselves, Mr. Waters, and if that's the case, then that's the case. But as we sit here, I think that I probably wrongly took from clients and people that trusted me as much money before that boat wreck as after.
All right. And I'm just trying to get through this so we don't get bogged down like we did yesterday. All right.
I understand.
All right. So you wouldn't agree with me that in 2019 alone you stole about $3.7 million?
No, I think that's correct.
All right. And would you agree with me, though, that figure in 2019 was generally higher than any other year that you've been stealing since 2011?
In any year, sure, I'd agree with that.
Okay.
I thought you were talking about overall, the whole cycle. But
right.
Yeah, I would agree that in 2019 I stole more money than any other year.
Would you agree with me that from 2015 on, your legitimate income, while still very strong, was diminishing as a general matter?
Well, I think whatever my income is speaks for itself, but as a general rule, a plaintiff's lawyer doing what we do, income ebbs and flows. You have some really good years, you have some really lean years, and no, I think I had some good years. Maybe not the $4 and $5 million years, but I think I had some $2 and $3 million years in there, and my caseload was such that I had one of the things I was working on that Monday was one of the biggest cases that I've ever been involved in.
Talking about the Dominion case, right?
Yes, sir.
All right.
And so, I think it was cyclical. I think it. So I don't. Without looking at the record specifically, I don't necessarily agree with that.
Okay, so you don't remember then?
No, I do remember. I don't think I agree with that. But again, those records will speak for themselves.
Okay. All right. So would you agree with me that in 2014, your reported income was over $1 million?
Objection relevant.
The objection's overruled.
Reported income, like tax-wise or reported?
Yeah.
I assume you have a document that says that, and if you're reading that from a document, I don't dispute it.
I mean, I'm happy to show it to you if you'd like to see
I
it.
trust you, Mr. Waters, so.
All right, I appreciate that. All right, 2015, would you agree that your reported income was over $2 million?
Again, I don't dispute that.
All right. 2016, reported income $900,000.
Okay,
2017, reported income $218,000.
okay,
2018, reported income of $749,000, roughly.
okay,
And 2019, reported income of $655,000.
okay. And see, I mean, to me, that demonstrates exactly what I'm talking about, how it goes up and down.
And would you agree with me that though during those periods of time where you were making that kind of money, you continued to steal? And I think you've already said that your stealing increased as we move through those years, as a general matter.
Absolutely. I don't dispute, and I have never disputed since I was confronted on Labor Day weekend
Right.
that I took money from my clients.
We've gone through that. And I
Well,
think
but you
we
keep
agree with
asking
that.
me
I'm
about
asking
that.
you if your income.
Finish your answer.
So the point is I have never, since being confronted that day, my brother and my partner came to talk to me, that I have stolen money that did not belong to me, that I misled people to do it, people that I cared about, still care about, a lot of them that I love and still love. And I misled them to do it, and I was wrong. I have never disputed that from day one.
We've been through that. All I'm trying to establish right now with you, Mr. Murdaugh, is as we move towards June of 2021, what your financial condition was like, okay? I agree, you've testified to that multiple times, all right? So, let me ask you this. During this time that your income was what we just went through, and you conceded that your stealing was increasing, were you also borrowing significant amount of money from Palmetto State Bank?
Yes, I'd always borrowed significant amount of money from Palmetto State Bank, or for the last, more than the last decade. So, yes, sir, I agree with that.
Yeah, but as we move to June of 2021, did you have $1 million line of credit with the bank that was pretty much maxed out? Yes or no?
As
we move to June of 2021.
So in June of 21?
Sure.
Yes.
All right. And did you also have a $600,000 line of credit that was pretty much maxed out around that time?
I did.
All right. And did you also, over the years, repeatedly borrow six figures from your law partners?
Well, I borrowed money from a law partner.
Which one?
Johnny Parker.
Johnny Parker. Okay. And that was a fairly common occurrence over the years. It happened multiple times. Would you agree with that?
I agree that it happened multiple times.
All right. And you would agree also that you would sometimes use some of the stolen money to pay that back?
I won't dispute that. I don't know that that's the case. I know what I saw Mr. Bernie testify to in using that particular accounting method. I see that.
All right.
So I don't dispute that.
All right. And would you agree that you also, when you needed money, occasionally borrow as much as 5 and 6 figures from your father, Mr. Randolph?
I did.
All right. And would you also agree that over the years, particularly as we move to June of 2021, you would use stolen money to pay that back?
I don't dispute that.
Okay.
If that's what the records show.
All right. And you just mentioned here in the testimony of Carson Burney and the banker and all that, you would agree with me that as we move to June of 2021, at least in liquid funds, you were running out of money.
In liquid funds, is in money on hand or money that I could get?
Money that you could liquid funds. You're a lawyer. You know what liquid means. Where are you
Well,
running out of
I don't
money?
know what you mean by liquid, Mr. Waters, and so
Money you could readily access, assets that you could readily access to pay your ever-increasing debts.
no, sir, I don't agree with that.
You don't agree with that?
I do not agree with that,
Okay.
and I'll tell you why.
All right.
So are we talking about June?
I'm talking about as we move to June.
Okay, but what time period are you talking
All
about?
right, let's talk about January to June.
Okay, January to June. January to June, you know, I could borrow money from my father. I could borrow money from Johnny Parker. I could go to the bank and borrow money. I had substantial equity in the Edisto house, as we've talked about.
Which was in Maggie's name, correct?
Well, it was in Maggie and my name.
All right.
So, you know, that definitely was in both of our names. Moselle was in Maggie's name. There was substantial equity in that could have been borrowed against. So under the terms as you defined liquid assets just now, money that I would have access to, I disagree with on that for those reasons that I just said.
Can we at least agree that generally the way the compensation structure for legitimate money that you earned in your law firm, the vast majority of your compensation does not come except in one lump sum in December? Can we agree to that?
Right. We get a salary. We would receive a salary. I believe our salary was $125,000.
Right.
And then the income that was earned would be paid in the form of a bonus at the year end.
All right. And then would you agree with me that that is why you stole the Ferris fees in March of 2021, because you were in desperate need of funds and you could not wait till December to access those funds?
I think there's probably a lot of reasons why I stole those funds, but I certainly would believe or don't dispute that that's one of the reasons.
And would you agree with me that the $792,000 that you stole of those Ferris funds, that you exhausted those within about 2 months?
I don't know the time period, but I know that I exhausted them.
Now, again, I'm trying to get through this quickly because there's a lot more to talk about, obviously. But we went through a number of questions yesterday about the various clients that you stole from, correct? You remember that? The back and forth we had yesterday, do you remember all that?
Sure I do.
Okay. All right, and so I'm going to try to shortchange this, but I think it's important that we at least say the names of the people that were involved. But let's just do this to see if we can...
To the comment, Your Honor, inappropriate.
I'll rephrase, Your Honor. The clients that we're talking about, these are all real people, yes or no?
They're all real people.
All right.
They're
And
all
these
good
clients-
people.
Okay.
They're all people that I care about, that I cared about then. And a lot of them are people that I love.
Okay.
And I did wrong by them.
Yes, you hurt the people that you love, I know. So,
Sustained.
these were all people, every single one of them, that you at least had a personal conversation with at some point during the course of your representation.
All of my
About the
clients?
representation.
Absolutely. I had multiple conversations with all of my clients.
And these were people, every single one of them, real people that you looked in the eye and convinced them that everything was right.
Your Honor, 403, repetitive, cumulative. We spent 2 hours doing this yesterday.
I'm just trying to but simple questions that applies to everybody, and then I'm moving on.
Proceed.
I would have had conversations with all of my clients, and some of the conversations would have been on the telephone. I would have had conversations where I might not be looking them in the eye. I would have had plenty of conversations where I did look them in the eye.
All right. Every single one of them looked them in the eye at least once. Is that fair?
Sure.
Every single one of them, you looked them in the eye and developed their trust in you. Is that true?
every client that I had, at some point, I looked them in the eye, and I believed that I had the trust of my clients. Whether that came from me looking them in the eye or not, I can't answer that, but I will agree with you that every single client, I looked them in the eye, and I believe that the people that I stole money from for all those years trusted me.
And I'm going to show you what's been previously admitted as states 329, I believe it is, and 314. And I'm just going to ask you to peruse those spreadsheets really quickly. And what you have a chance to do that, let me know. I'll have one or two questions about that.
All right, so I'm sorry. What was your question?
I just asked you to look at them. Have you had a chance to review those documents?
I have.
All right. And would you agree with me that every single name on here are either clients that trusted you that you stole from, or instances in which you stole from your law partners who trusted you as well?
I agree with that.
All right. So we don't need to go through each one of these, correct? You agree?
Mr. Waters, like I've told you, I'll go through whatever you want to go through, but each one of those clients is just what we've already talked about. Good people, fine people, upstanding people. They trusted me. Every single one of them I did, and I do still care about. And many of them I love and consider them close friends.
Like Barrett Boulware?
Absolutely. It's a perfect example.
And you stole from Barrett Boulware?
I did.
Do you recall a conversation that you had with Ronnie Crosby in which he told you that Barrett was desperate for money because he needed his wife to stay in a hotel near him while he was undergoing treatment for terminal cancer around the time that you stole from him?
Say, Your Honor.
Objections overruled.
I don't recall that conversation, but, you know, I knew Barrett was sick. You know, Barrett is a unique situation. I mean, Barrett is and was dear to me as a friend. But, I mean, Barrett and I had a long, long history. You know, I guess really, and I lied probably more by omission, lies by omission in stealing that money. But that's a perfect example. You keep asking about me having these conversations and looking people in the eye. I mean, that's a perfect example. I mean, when I stole that money, he was nowhere around. It was more based on lies by omission. And Barrett and I had such a history. These real estate deals that you're asking me about, Barrett was one of my good friends, and we had been in these real estate deals together. Barrett was just an interesting person. He was a shrimper. He was born and raised in Allendale County, and he moved down to the coast. And
Mr. Murdaugh.
as shrimping,
Mr. Murdaugh, I don't know that we need Barrett's entire life story.
no, but it's important
Let
to
me just
understand
ask
this
you
based on
this.
the question you asked.
I don't think his entire life story is responsive, Your Honor.
And I'm not intending to give his life story. I'm just telling you a little background.
Go
so
ahead.
you'll
Tell us
understand
about
it.
your friend that you stole from. That's fine.
So Barrett started getting into real estate, and he was really good at it. And so I started getting involved with him in that. He could go out and find pieces of property that were really cheap, get them and sell them and make money. Well, we got in some of these deals, and we got in as Barrett and it was some other people. Well, when the recession hit, one of the reasons these land deals caused me trouble is because the people that I was in these deals with no longer could pay. Whereas I might have gone in and I was a 20% person, I'm now all of a sudden either I have to default at the bank and affect credit, affect ability to borrow, or I have to pay 100%. And so that's what I did. I paid 100%. And so there were years where I was paying instead of a fifth or a half, I'm paying the whole thing. And it equated to it equated to millions of dollars, which is one of the ways why I ended up with the Moselle property, because I had paid more than $1 million in monies for Barrett, and that was part of the deal in the trade in me purchasing Moselle.
So what you're telling me is you felt like you were entitled to steal from him?
No. You know what? I will tell you this, that, you know, when you're doing the things wrong that I was doing, you have all kind of ways of justifying it. And I'm not saying that makes it right by any means, because it's not. It's wrong. I've said that 100 times. But when I was doing it, and I was as addicted as I was, and the things I was doing, there's all kind of things that you know, to be able to look yourself in the mirror, you lie to yourself. And I guess self-justification for these bad things, you know, I guess is what I was doing. But, you know, Barrett had owed me so much money that when I took his money, I just didn't tell him. So it was a lie by omission.
All right. All these people on these two exhibits, these were real people that needed this money, is that correct?
I'm sure they did.
But it was more important to you that you stole their money on top of the 40% of legal fees that you were taking.
Repetitive.
I've never asked that question.
I stole their money.
It was more important to you than their needs, is that correct?
Objection.
Objection's overruled.
I don't remember sitting down and calculating, okay, is this more important? You know, one of the self-justifications that I talked about, Mr. Waters, is, and this is one of the things, again, I want to make it clear. I don't, as I sit here today, I do not believe that any of this justifications that I'm talking about made any of this okay, because I don't. I've owned up to all this money I stole. I've tried to since I was confronted, and I continue here today. But one of the justifications at the time when I was taking pills and doing the things I was doing was, I may ask a partner, okay, how much is this case worth? And if one of my partners, and I may not even give them all the real facts, okay? So if they said this case is worth $100,000, okay, and I go out and I get them $300,000, you know, that's one of the stupid little things. Okay, well, this isn't the same. And that's one of those justifications that I used in looking back on this that I don't know how I did. But so to sit down and say, did I evaluate that they needed the money more than I did? You know, I don't think I did that. I think I was selfish, and I think I just took the money.
Okay. I think I understand. I'd asked you a series of questions yesterday about at least relating one conversation you had with one of these clients. And I'm just going to ask you this one. Do you remember looking Tony Satterfield in the eye and lying to him?
I remember lying to Tony Satterfield, and I remember looking him in the eye on many occasions.
And lying to him?
Yeah.
Okay. Lying to his family?
I lied to his family. I don't know if I did it in person, but I know I had phone conversations with him where I lied to him.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about the pills, if we can.
Okay.
And you've already testified, as has other people, that you were still able to function as a lawyer over the years despite the pills that you were using. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And you were able, of course, during this period of time to engage in these relatively complicated thefts that increased over the years that we've just talked about. despite the pill usage. Is that correct?
I was. I was.
All right. And you were also able to, during this time period, convince your staff that nothing was amiss with all of these exhibits, despite your pill usage.
I mean, most of those didn't require convincing my staff, but just so we're on the same page again, I acknowledge that I certainly allowed them to be misled. I certainly allowed them to do things that I shouldn't have done on my behalf, knowing that they trusted me.
How many pills were you using a day?
Depends on a number of items. Most importantly, how strong the pill was.
Okay. Well, let's talk about, let's say, start maybe in January of 2021 and move forward. Can you describe to the jury what your daily pill intake was like?
I think at that time, most of what I was purchasing was 30 milligram pills, instant release, oxycodone. That probably mixed in with some OxyContin, which is made of oxycodone. It's just time release. I would have been taking anywhere from 1,500 milligrams maybe to maybe 1,000 or maybe 1,000 milligrams or 1,200 milligrams on a day I didn't take as much or didn't have as much, up to, I mean, there are days, many days, a lot of days, most days were more than that, and many days would be, more than 2,000 milligrams a day.
And how many pills is that?
It depends on the strength.
Well, let's say it's the
Of the
30s
pill.
that you just mentioned.
If I took 30, if I had 30 milligram pills, you figure 100 pills would be 3,000 milligrams.
100?
100.
So you're taking 60 a day or something like that? I mean,
There were days where I took more than that. There were days I took less than that.
and how would you take them during the course of the day? I mean, how many are you taking at one time? How frequent in this time period, let's say January to June?
There's a point in time, and I'm not sure when it was, I think it was well before that, where, and you have to understand this. This is something that I can still remember the first time I ever took an OxyContin.
Mr. Murdaugh, can I ask you to answer my question, and I'll let you explain all you want. And my question was, how many were you taking a day during this time from January to June? Answer that first, please, and if you want to explain, I'm happy to let you do so.
I'm not positive, and here's why. It's because over the years, as I was saying, the first OxyContin, one OxyContin made me sick. And that was when I was transitioning from hydrocodone to oxycodone. And it made me sick because it was a really, really, really strong one. And so, one OxyContin pill was like 10 hydrocodone pills. So, but anyway, as I took more and more, and over the years, it just, you build up a tolerance to pain pills. And so what might give me this energy, one of the reasons I became so addicted is, some people talk about pain pills and how they make them lethargic and, where they can't do anything and they feel. Opiates gave me energy. I mean, whatever I was doing, it made it more interesting. It made me want to do it longer. to go on a drive. It made driving, it just, at the beginning, it made everything better. But I took so much just to keep, it got to a point where I was taking so much just to not backslide or go into withdrawals or have all those symptoms. And so it got to the point where I was taking the amounts that I came to be taking in the time period you're talking about, January to June. So it evolved over time. It wasn't like it just started then, Mr. Waters.
All right, can you just give me one example of a day during that time period?
Sure.
Did you start at 8 o'clock in the morning or whatever time you got up and take one and then one every 30 minutes? I mean,
well, no,
I've given you a chance to explain. So
it would
now
totally
be
depend.
specific.
It would totally depend on any number of circumstances. So starting a day, one of the main things that this would depend on was how late the day before I had taken pills and how many I had taken. And did I take them during the night? Did I wake up during the night and take them? So, let's just say that it had been a while since I took any and I slept and I woke up. All right. Then I would immediately, first thing, take pills, because if it's been a while, a lot of times if you slept and hadn't taken pills, you'd wake up and you could tell the beginnings of those. I'm not going to say they were really withdrawals, but that agitation that you feel when you don't take it, and you could tell it, so you had to take it right away. And so I would start off, first thing I would do would take pills.
And that's how strong the withdrawals are for opiates, correct? That you feel that agitation until you can take another pill.
Yes, that's just agitation's the tip of the iceberg when it comes to withdrawals, opiate withdrawals.
I think you said in your what's been played for the jury and the telephone conversation with Special Agent Kelly and you talked about withdrawals, just how strong they are, how you're willing to do anything to make them stop, correct?
I think what I said is almost anything.
Almost anything. Well, describe that, please.
You're sick. You're physically, you are physically sick. It's like having the flu when you ache and your joints hurt. You don't want to get up. You can't get up. And that's after a while. It starts with what you're talking about, agitation and, fidgety. Everybody talks about how fidgety I was. But it starts with that, and then it goes to, you might be sitting here and just all of a sudden sweat's running down your face, all over your body. Like you ran a marathon. You literally sweat that much. The next thing that comes on after about, 12 hours is, I call it jumpy legs, but you literally, there's no way that you could sit right here in this chair. You couldn't remain sitting. You would have to get up and move around. And it's like your legs don't want to work. And that lasts for about anywhere from 18 to 24 hours. During that period, the intestinal issues come in, and you can't control yourself. You have diarrhea like you have food poisoning. You throw up. You're physically sick.
How many times did you try to self-detox?
Mr. Waters, dozens. if not hundreds. It's so many I can't tell you.
And those symptoms you just described are extremely powerful and made it very difficult to do that. Is that correct?
Made it difficult to
try to self-detox.
Oh, it's extremely hard.
You mentioned yesterday that you were paranoid. How long had that been going on?
Well, no, I didn't say that I was paranoid. What I said was, as the addiction evolved, there would be situations where you would have these paranoid thoughts.
And when did those first start?
I can't tell you when they first started, but...
I mean, how long before June of 2021?
Oh, a long
week,
time.
A month, a long time?
No. It was, it was as my addiction got worse. I mean, it was a significant period of time. But,
how long would you have these paranoid thoughts?
Usually a matter of seconds. I mean, it was something, again, my whole life, you wouldn't see me where I didn't have pills on me. And that's where I kept them. I kept them on me because I was scared to put them somewhere for fear somebody would find them. So I kept them on me. So if you saw me, I had pills on me. I had a pocket full of pills on June the 8th. On June the 8th, when I was sitting in David Owen's patrol car. So I always had them on me, and I might be going to Edisto, and I turn on Hampton Street right out here, and a police car pulls out. Boom. I have paranoid thoughts. It just... But I could always say, you're not doing anything wrong. He's not following you. And I could get past it in a matter of seconds.
Did anybody in your family ever see you having these severe withdrawals?
Absolutely.
And who did?
Mags, Pawpaw, Bus, my dad, Randy, John Marvin. And just to be clear, Randy and John Marvin never saw me having withdrawals before September. They saw me.
And I thank you for clarifying that. Prior to June of 2021, who in your family saw you having these severe withdrawals?
Bus, Pawpaw, Maggie, my dad.
Do you remember calling Paul a little detective?
I don't know that I ever called him a little detective, but I think Maggie did. I may have. I mean, Paul was very intuitive, so I heard Miriam.
I heard your interviews.
I heard Miriam call him a little detective. I know Maggie used to call him that.
Did that have anything to do with the pills?
Well, yeah, it had something to do with it. But I mean, Paul was always that way. But that what led him to be called a little detective. Certainly, there were times when Paul found pills,
including just a month before the murders. Is that correct?
No, sir.
Right. You recall 6/5/23 that was entered into evidence, which is a text from Paul to you?
I do.
Which he said that Maggie found pills in your bag?
Right.
Tell me about what happened after that.
You asked me about Paul finding them, but it was Maggie that found them.
Fair enough. So it was Maggie that found them?
Yes, sir.
Okay. But Paul's the one who reached out to you, correct?
On that occasion, yes, sir.
And what was the discussion after that?
I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was about that I'd had eye surgery I don't know what day it was, but days before that. The day Maggie found them, Maggie drove me to the doctor for me to have my cataract removed, whatever they call that surgery. I can't remember, but I had a cataract taken out, outpatient. You go in for a couple hours and you come out. And it was during COVID, and so Maggie wasn't allowed to come into the doctor's office, and so she sat in the car. And I had left pills in the computer bag and sitting out there bored. I guess she started looking at my computer and found them in the computer bag. So she found those pills.
All right. And so she obviously told Paul, and Paul texted you, correct? About finding those pills.
That's correct.
In May of 2021.
That's correct.
And you've heard your sister-in-law, Marion, testify that Maggie called him, the little detective, about the pills. You heard that testimony in this courtroom?
I did hear that.
All right. So did they start to watch you like a hawk and get on you about your pill usage during the month of May?
No.
They did not.
No, Mr. Waters, this battle that I had with addiction, it had been going on for years. And so they had been watching me like a hawk for years before May. May was just one occurrence where I let them down again.
All right. They had been watching you like a hawk for years, is that correct?
About my pill addiction, yes, sir. That is correct.
This time in May, that wasn't the only time that Paul found pills or Maggie found pills, is that correct?
Now, there were a number of times where Mags found pills, Paul found pills, Bus found pills. I mean, it was an ongoing, it was just an ongoing battle for me.
And after they found those pills in May, that being Maggie and Paul, were they trying to get you to self-detox?
No, sir, not at that point in time.
They just let it go?
No, they didn't let it go. But at that point in time, Paul and I had already had a discussion based on, I can't remember exactly when it was, but there had been a previous occasion a good while back where there'd been a previous occasion where either Maggie or Paul had found pills, and Paul had come to me and asked me, and I told him, you know, I was back on the pills. And
When was this occasion?
we had a long talk. As I said, I don't remember exactly when it was before that. Paul and I had had a long talk. And we'd agreed, I had agreed, and I detoxed so many times. I'd been to detox. I detoxed at home with Maggie's help. I detoxed at home with doctor's help. I detoxed on my own, tried to, and it just detoxing just didn't work. You couldn't you could detox, but you couldn't, no, not you, I couldn't stay off of them. And so, I promised Paul that as soon as we finished with his criminal case, that I would go to rehab. And and on this particular occasion, Paul knew that his mom worried about me so much with pills that on this particular occasion, I think that Pawpaw convinced Maggie that I got those pills in anticipation of the eye surgery, but that I never took them, so that she would not worry that I was once again.
So you're talking about, now you're claiming that about the time in May, that Paul talked to Maggie and convinced her of that? Or are you talking about a different time?
I'm not claiming that, Mr. Waters. That's a fact. This is what happened.
All right. We're hearing that now, correct?
Hearing what now?
What you just said.
Well, you just asked me this. Mr. Waters, you keep making an issue about first time you hearing these things. When I got arrested and I went to jail, we began reaching out to you to talk to you about all of these things, to try to tell you everything that I'd done, to give you all these details to help y'all go through these financial things. And up until the time that y'all charged me with murdering my wife and child, you would never give Jim Griffin a response to our invitations to sit down and meet with you.
So you're telling me I never responded to Jim Griffin? Is that what you're saying here today?
I'm telling you.
Are you saying that you ever before yesterday reached out to anyone through yourself or through your attorneys and reached out to anyone in law enforcement or the prosecution and told them the story about the kennels? Are you telling me that?
What I'm telling you,
answer my
Mr.
question
Waters,
first, please, sir. Answer my question first. Did you ever reach out to anyone in law enforcement or the prosecution and tell that story that you told this jury yesterday about the kennels before yesterday?
Did I ever reach out to law enforcement to say, I want to tell you about the kennels? No, sir, I did not.
This is the Fifth Amendment line.
Pardon?
This questioning about him volunteering information on these charges violates his Fifth Amendment rights, and we strongly object. Any more, we have to make a motion.
He brought it up.
The objection's overruled.
What I did was,
Answer my question first, sir.
You know, for the record, he did not bring it. He was talking about financial
Sit down,
stuff.
Mr. Griffin.
Yes or no question. Before yesterday, did you ever bring up what you told this jury about that kennels to anybody in the prosecution or anybody in law enforcement?
no, I didn't have the opportunity to, Mr. Waters, because you would not respond to my invitations to reach out and tell you about all the things that I'd done wrong. And to talk about bringing this to a head, to talk about bringing this to closure. I understand how many people I hurt. I understand how angry my partners are and how hurt they are. And I understand how hurt these people that I stole money from are. I understand how hurt they are. And one of the things that I believe is getting past this may help them get some closure. And so since at least January, I've been trying to sit down with y'all to talk to y'all.
Okay.
And never, ever got a response to the multiple requests.
Multiple requests?
Yes, sir, multiple requests. I would ask about this
Mr. Murdaugh.
every
Let's
few
ask
weeks.
this, sir.
Sir?
Did Mark Ball ever hear your story to the jury about the kennels until yesterday? Your buddy and law partner, Mark Ball?
No, sir, I haven't spoken to Mark Ball since I went to rehab.
And these were the same law partners that you were listening to the night of. Is that what you testified to this jury earlier? You testified to that earlier, did you not?
I don't understand your question.
Didn't you testify earlier that you were listening to your law partners on the night of the incident?
Was I listening to them?
Yeah, you testified to that. It's a simple question, sir.
I'm sure I was. When are you talking about?
On June 8th in the early morning hours, you testified to this jury that you were listening to them, but you never told them the kennel story either, and they heard it for the first time yesterday as well. Isn't that correct?
Yes, that's the first time they heard it.
First time that Ronnie Crosby ever heard that would have been yesterday?
If he was listening, that would have been the first time he heard
First
it.
time Johnny Parker ever heard that was yesterday?
Yes.
First time Danny Henderson, who was representing you in the boat case, ever heard that was yesterday?
Yes, yesterday is the first time that I have said that openly. But that's not what you were asking me, Mr. Waters, but you go ahead.
First time your brother Randy heard that was yesterday.
If he was listening. And Mr. Waters, just to be clear, I was begging for a meeting with y'all to try to bring this to a close, to talk to y'all about everything up until the time that y'all charged me with hurting Maggie and Paul. Now, after that point in time, I stopped, obviously.
You're claiming that you were begging for a meeting, but you admit information was never conveyed that you wanted to change your story after multiple interviews with law enforcement about what happened that night, including the most important fact of all, which is when the last time you supposedly saw your wife and son alive was.
I don't know exactly what was conveyed or not because I wasn't part of it. All I know
Fair
is
enough.
what I was trying to do was to sit down. I understood to bring all this to a close that y'all would want me to sit down and go through all of these financial things, all of these things that I'd done wrong, and to try to bring that to a close, I was repeatedly trying to sit down with y'all.
The reality is, Mr. Murdaugh, is the reason why no one's ever heard that before is because you had to sit in this courtroom and hear your family and your friends, one after the other, come in and testify that you were on that kennel video. So you, like you've done so many times over the course of your life, had to back up and make a new story that kind of fit with the facts that can't be denied. Isn't that true, sir?
No, sir, that's not true.
Okay. You've done that over and over again over the years with all of this that we've been talking about, haven't you?
I've done what over and over again?
The second that you're confronted with facts that you can't deny, you immediately come up with a new lie. Isn't that correct?
Mr. Waters, as we've established, I have lied many times, but I can't sit here and tell you that, what are you talking about, facts that I can't deny? That I would disagree with that proposition that you're putting out, that was what I did all the time. But in doing that, I admit again that I've lied to people that trusted me.
So we can agree that the prosecution and law enforcement and so many of your friends and family heard for the first time your story about the kennels yesterday after all these weeks of testimony. Can we agree on that?
That law enforcement, my partners, and my friends heard me say that for the first time. Yes, I agree with that.
Would you agree with me that your own lawyer was repeating your story that you were at home napping as late as November of 22 on national television?
I don't know.
You don't know that?
No, in jail we don't get newspapers, and the TV we have is limited. So
your own lawyers, at least as late as November 22, didn't know this story that you've told to this jury after 5 weeks of your family and friends coming in and saying, yeah, that's him on that video.
I don't know.
Objection, Your Honor, violates attorney-client privilege communication. Totally improper. Totally improper.
Yes, sir. Response.
He has brought up his communications with counsel, and now that is fair game, Your Honor. His communications through counsel or alleged communications with the prosecution.
He didn't.
There's no attorney-client privilege to national television interviews. The objection is overruled.
Are you waiting for me to answer, Mr. Waters, or did I answer?
I think the point's made.
All right, sir.
You said you were unaware of that national television interview. Is that what you said? You were
Unaware of what national television
The
interview?
one where your lawyer repeated that story as late as November of 2022. Your story that you were actually home asleep at the house.
The only national TV ad that I'm aware of is program is one that Mr. Griffin was involved in. Are you referring to like a Dateline something?
I'm talking about HBO.
Okay, HBO. All right, I am aware of that, and what I believe the case to be is that I believe that when that was in its works, that Mr. Griffin made those statements sometime substantially before November of 22, as early as around the very beginning of 2021.
Well, let's talk.
At least what I understand to be the case.
All right, well, let's talk some more about your testimony from yesterday. And you're telling this jury, even on something as clear as a skin on video, that your story doesn't change when you have to make them fit the facts that no longer can be denied. Is that what you're telling this jury?
I don't understand that question. Say that again.
I said, you're telling this jury that you don't change your story to make the facts fit evidence you can no longer deny, like what's been going on in this courtroom.
I'm not telling the jury anything about that.
All right, good. All right, let's move on. Let's talk some more about that issue. Let's talk about the confrontation on June the 7th with Jeannie Seckinger, which you said was no big deal. Isn't that what you testified? Words to that effect?
I think what I testified to is that, to me, it certainly didn't seem like a confrontation. Jeannie came to me and was almost apologetic. And this is what I believe, Mr. Waters, is I believe that what Jeannie Seckinger and my partners have had to go through since September has been hard. I know I could see it. I could see the hurt that I caused them. And I know that they're betrayed, and I know that they're angry, and I know that they're hurt. And I want to make clear to this that while I disagree with what Jeannie said as to it being a confrontation, because I don't believe that it was, I don't think that she was lying. I think that she feels it. I think that, she believes that that's the case after all this time that she's had to deal with this. But on June the 7th, when she came to me, she was almost apologetic. You heard her say that she said that she wouldn't be doing her job if she didn't do this. And it was made clear to me that someone had said this, that I had to make sure that income came through the firm, that I couldn't structure money. In other words, I had the impression that there was concern that maybe, like Mark Ball and Ronnie Crosby said, that maybe I was hiding fees because of the civil boat case. But that conversation was so quick, Mr. Waters, that you keep using the term confrontation. I didn't take it as a confrontation.
And you're telling this jury you're not making that issue fit, make your story fit with those facts by saying, it wasn't a big deal, and Jeannie, she's hurt, so she's overreacting now.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
You got on that stand and testify.
What I'm saying is exactly what I just testified to, that to me, on that day, that was not a confrontation. It ended almost as quickly as it began, and I didn't think about it again for a period of time until after everything happened.
You testified earlier you get paranoid if a police officer turns out behind you, but you're not getting paranoid when Jeannie comes in here and says, I need an answer about these fees?
No, because
I believe you took them?
No, things like that wouldn't cause the paranoid thought and the paranoid thinking. It was always related to pills. It was always, okay, that reaction that somebody just gave me.
It was always related to pills.
Do they know something? Did something somebody said? It was, I mean, the times that's what, when I had to deal with paranoid thinking, that, you know, if a judge confronted me in the courtroom about a piece of evidence, or if Jeannie asked me about that, those are not things that gave me paranoid thinking.
Okay. And you testified the same thing about the boat hearing on June 10th. Not worried about it. No big deal. Correct?
No, I didn't say that it was no big deal, but I said that my main concern about those motions coming up on June the 10th dealt more with the venue motion than they did with the motion to compel, I believe is what I said.
Are you telling this jury that you didn't testify yesterday, that you weren't concerned about it?
I wasn't overly concerned about it.
Okay.
And I'm sure I had some level of concern because the venue motion was a big issue in the case.
Well, were you concerned enough about it to bow up with Mark Tinsley at the trial lawyers conference and say, what are you doing, Bo?
No, absolutely, unequivocally, never happened.
Okay. If the Ferris fee issue comes to light on June the 7th, you're not going to be able to borrow money from Johnny Parker anymore, are you?
If the Ferris fee, hypothetically speaking, if the Ferris fee came to light on June the 7th, well, here, any point in time, if the Ferris fee came to light, Johnny Parker would not loan me money.
Okay.
If Johnny knew that I had taken fees, I would not have been able to borrow money from Johnny Parker.
You testified earlier about going to the Gamecock baseball game on the weekend prior to Monday, June the 7th, 2021, correct?
Correct.
Hold on for me real quick.
Sir?
All right. I'm going to show you what's been marked as Stage 572 to this trial. You got your readers with you, or your glasses. And first I just want you to look through that document and then answer the question, do you generally know what that is?
Waters. Someone wants something, so if you'll stand for a moment. Everybody stand for a moment. We come to order.
May it please the court. Have you had a chance to review that, Mr. Murdaugh?
Yes, sir.
All right, and do you recognize what those are generally?
I do.
And what are they?
Text between Maggie and I.
And what day did they take place?
June the 6th.
June the 6th, 2021. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes, sir.
At this time, the state would offer States 572 into evidence. No objection.
To admit without objection.
All right. Tell the jury, where were you when these texts were taking place?
I was in the hotel,
And what city were you in?
Columbia, South Carolina.
All right. And where were they?
I'm not exactly sure where they were when they first started, but they would have been somewhere between a hotel, a restaurant, and the ball field.
All right. But when you send this text on June 6th at 11:41, you say y'all in seat already, correct?
Yes, that's what I did say.
All right. And they say, yeah, Maggie says, yes, we like these seats. Is that correct?
All right, that's correct. I didn't notice that. So at that point in time, they are in the ballpark.
All right. And then you respond, better than last night. They extended checkout to 1. Going to come then. Is that correct?
That's what that text says. Yes, sir.
All right. So you're back at the room. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Later on, you text after she asked you to bring a charger and says, Muggy, you text, I'm dreading it. See you in a little bit. Is that correct?
That's what I said. Yes, sir.
She responds, don't come, but then asks about the charger and says it's hot. Is that correct?
Mr. Waters, yes, I assume you were reading it exactly so. Yes, sir.
All right. She eventually responds, not crowded, but not the place to come if you don't feel well. Very hot and muggy. We are inside, sitting at the bar, very nice indoors. Is that correct?
That's what it says. Yes, sir.
And then you respond, dodgy by accident. They are making me leave, so I'll see y'all in a few. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And who was making you leave where?
It was past checkout time at the hotel.
After you'd gotten an extended checkout, correct?
It appears so.
And the reality is that you were in that hotel suffering from withdrawals when that's going on. Is that correct?
I was beginning to. Yes, sir.
All right. And the reality is that your wife and your son were on you at that time period because they had found pills just a few weeks prior.
No, sir, that's not correct.
Let's talk about June 7th, okay? You got up that morning, or what time do you think you got up and left that day?
After having the benefit of looking at all these records, I don't know what time I got up. And looking at the records, obviously I've been up for a while, but it appears I left shortly after noon.
Okay. And you went to work?
I did, yes, sir.
And what were you working on at work?
I was working on this Dominion Energy case, was primarily what I was working on, that we had motions coming up later in that week. As I said earlier, I believed at the time that it was the biggest case that I'd ever been involved in. And there were motions coming up in that. I was preparing. Danny Henderson, my partner that was helping me with the civil case from the boat wreck, had been on me about getting a financial statement, and I finished doing that so that it could be given to Danny. It's primary, is what I remember doing. Obviously, I talked to Jeannie, but
Okay. And what time did you leave?
and I'm sure I did some other routine office things, but I can't tell you what they are.
All right. What time did you leave?
It appears that I left around a little after 6 from the records.
Okay.
I thought I'd left earlier than that, but I mean the records seemed to be pretty clear.
All right. And you were, in fact, I think you said in many of your interviews that you were working on the boat case that day as well. Your financial declaration.
Yes, I prepared the financial declaration. I didn't do any work in this civil case. So my work in that is what I did. I prepared the financial statement, which took me a little bit of time to get the details on that. But I mean, that was the work I did in preparation for the motions coming up.
And what time did you get home?
And looking at the records, it looks like I got home a little before 7, 6:45, I think, 6:40 something.
And then you and Paul rode the property?
That's correct.
And you told law enforcement you shot a .22?
That's correct.
You told law enforcement that you never saw any blackout?
That I'd never seen a blackout?
That at that point in time when you and Paul were riding the property?
No, I did not see a blackout.
Did you tell law enforcement that you and Paul were going around looking for hogs?
If I said that,
Go ahead.
and if I told them that, you know, you don't look for hogs in the daytime. All right? The hogs are deep in the swamp in the daytime. So I can tell you that Paul and I were not riding around looking for hogs. But what we were doing is we were going from food plot to food plot, and we were looking for hog signs. All right? What a hog will do is come out and root, and they tear up food plots. They tear up everything. And so that was one of the things we were doing. But we were not hog hunting. We were not looking for hogs. We did not have the .300 blackout with us.
Okay. Paul didn't have the gun that blackout that he favored with him while y'all rode the property.
The gun that's in here,
Any rifle.
there was no .300 blackout with me and Paul.
All y'all had was a .22.
And that was a .22 pistol, but we didn't have that with us at that time riding the property.
Right. And you testified, you've seen the Snapchat video of you on the tree, is that right?
I have seen that.
And you don't dispute the time of that video, do you?
I don't even know what time that was taken, but whatever the gentleman
that.
came and testified to, I don't dispute that.
All right. And what time Well, let me ask you this. When did you go back to the house? Were you with Paul or were you by yourself?
I was by myself when I went back to the house. I went back to the house basically when Maggie got there.
When Maggie got there. All right. And where had Paul gone prior to that? Was he back at the house already or he came after you?
Paul was at the shop when I went back to the house.
All right. So you beat him to the house is what you're saying. Is that right?
I beat him to the house?
Yeah. You were at the house prior to him getting there.
Yes.
All right. And you say Maggie was there at the same time or there before you or there after you?
That's what I'm not absolutely certain about. I believe that Maggie came through the kennel entrance, and going back and looking at these records and these times, I believe she came through the kennel entrance while Paul and I were at the shop. Mm-hmm. But either way, I got to the house very shortly after Maggie got there.
Okay.
And I believe that she came through, and I believe that I went right behind her.
And when did you take the shower that you've been talking about to this jury?
I believe when I first went in the house. I mean, I would have talked to Maggie for a second, but I'd seen her that morning, so I would.
You left your clothes on the floor?
I'm not sure. It makes sense to me given what Blanca's said, but I couldn't tell you one way or the other.
All right. About what time was that, you think?
In looking at the records, I think that was a little after 8.
Then you're saying Maggie was already there at that point?
When I got to the house?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what did you do after that?
I came back out, sat out on the couch to eat dinner.
All right. About what time was that?
A few minutes later. I mean, it didn't take me long to shower.
And you say Paul was already eating at that point?
He was.
You say he left first.
What I said is he got up and he finished eating, and he left our immediate vicinity. Now, I don't believe he left at that point, given what I've looked at time records and all. I believe that he was around the house for a little bit longer.
And just to be clear again,
but I didn't see him.
All of this detail was people were hearing for the first time yesterday, like we talked about before, correct?
Say that again?
All of this detail that we're going through right now is not anything that you related before. We're all hearing this for the first time yesterday.
Objection, Your Honor. Fifth Amendment privilege.
Objection is overruled.
So, yes, I did not tell law enforcement. Actually, I don't think law enforcement asked me what I did when we first went to the house, but I clearly lied to law enforcement about what I said yesterday.
Okay. And all of this, the last time you supposedly saw your wife and child, all of this detail, you as a lawyer and a prosecutor didn't think that was important to offer on your own?
Oh, I think it's important.
You told this jury how cooperative you've been and how much information you wanted to provide, but you left out the most important parts, didn't you?
I left out that. I sure did.
You don't consider that one of the most important parts?
I think it's important.
All right, tell me about what happens next. Tell me about how Maggie and Paul end up out down at the kennels.
I'm still not absolutely certain exactly how they ended up at the kennel, but in looking at the time frames and looking at the GPS points, I think I pretty well know, because I wasn't sure if Maggie had walked to the kennels or ridden to the kennels, and I wasn't exactly sure how Paw got there, but I'm all but certain that Maggie and Paul went to the kennel together.
All right. And what was the discussion? You said that they were going down there, but you didn't want to go. Is that right?
Maggie. What I said is Maggie asked me to go to the kennels with her, and I wasn't going to go. I said, I'm not going to go.
And how long after she left did you supposedly go down there?
It was very quickly.
And what did you tell this jury and all these new facts as to the reason you changed your mind? Why'd you change your mind?
I just had a shower. When you go to the kennel, you always end up at the shop, the dogs are running around, you're always going to end up doing more work. All right? It's hot. I'd already had a shower. I didn't want to go to the kennel.
I understand that. So why'd you change your mind?
Because Maggie wanted me to.
All right. So you thought about it for a few minutes and then decided to go down there?
I don't think I sat and contemplated, am I going to go, am I going to go? I think that, like many things Maggie wanted me to do, if I didn't do it at first, I ended up doing it.
And you took the golf cart down to the kennels?
That's correct.
How long did that take to drive from the house down to the kennels in a golf cart?
You know, in looking at the records from OwnStar and all of that, it seems to take about a minute in the
golf cart?
Nope, in the Suburban. Mm-hmm. So I would think it's probably, in looking at those speeds, 20, 24 miles an hour, I would think it takes double that. I think it takes a couple minutes.
All right, so you'll concede at least a couple minutes to drive down there. Is that right?
Yes.
In a golf cart?
That's correct.
When the kennel video was going on, had you arrived before that?
I believe that I had.
Okay. How long do you think you had been there before that was going on?
Not long. Because when I got there, in looking at the kennel video, you can see Pawpaw standing in the kennel. When I got there, Pawpaw wasn't standing in the kennel.
He wasn't in the kennel anymore?
Well, he wasn't in the kennel like he is in the video.
Right.
He's probably, and I don't know exactly, but I know he wasn't in the kennel. He was like in the driveway. He was fooling with Cash. He was in the driveway, but like close to the kennel, but not in the kennel like he is in the video.
So the video happened after that, according to you?
Video happened after I got there?
After you first saw Paul? You're saying he wasn't in the kennel. When did the video happen?
I believe that to be the case.
Okay. After you had arrived. Is that correct?
Yes.
And
very shortly after I arrived, but after I arrived.
All right. And did you tell Maggie at that time that you were going to go to Alameda?
I did not.
Did y'all discuss it at all, according to these new facts you're testifying to?
I don't believe so.
Did you have any conversation with her?
Oh, yeah.
Did you have a conversation with Paul about the dogs, about Cash's tail prior to going down there?
Prior to going down there? Did I have a conversation with Paul about
Did you
Cash?
talk to him about Cash and some problem with his tail prior to going down there? Did you have any knowledge of that prior to going down there?
I'm not sure. As I sit here today, I don't recall that, but I don't think so.
When you first arrived in the golf cart, where did you pull up to?
I pulled up right where Maggie was.
Which is where?
She was standing in a spot where she could see in between the chicken coop and the storage room of the kennels, where the dogs were back up in those planted pines behind the kennels to the left of the chicken coop.
And what did you do after that?
I went back to the house.
No, I mean, did you pulled up? You get out of the golf cart?
When I pulled up, I stayed on the golf cart.
You stayed on the golf cart. How long did you stay on the golf cart?
However long I was down there.
The entire time?
No, I got off to take the chicken from Bubba.
All right. So how long were you down there before you took the chicken off the boat?
Very short time.
Like what?
Couple minutes.
And what were you doing during the couple of minutes before you got over there to deal with Bubba?
Talking to Mags.
All right. And what did y'all talk about?
I don't know.
You don't remember?
No, sir. I do know that Maggie was very concerned about Paw Paw, and
you remember a lot of detail about all these new facts, but you don't remember what you talked about?
I don't remember the exact details of what we talked about. I believe that at that time we may have talked about Paw Paw, but I'm not certain.
Were you withdrawing at this time?
At this time, no, sir.
You weren't withdrawing at all?
No. I mean, I would only withdraw when I didn't have pills.
And you're saying you had pills?
Yes.
Down there for a couple minutes, I think you've said now, before you get off the golf cart?
About, yes, sir.
All right. And where do you go at that point?
I take the chicken from Bubba.
All right. So you get up?
Well, I mean, Bubba's come out there with this chicken. I mean, he's showing us, hey, I caught this chicken. And I take the chicken from Bubba.
Bubba came up to the golf cart?
He came up by the golf cart. He came up to Maggie and I, which I was on the golf cart. She's by the golf cart. I mean, he's not coming to the golf cart, but he's coming to us.
Is this during the kennel video or is this after the kennel video?
Well, no, you hear Maggie say he's got a chicken. Okay. That's what she's talking about is Bubba caught a chicken.
All right. All right. So is the kennel video still going on before you go get the chicken? I mean, you've heard it, correct? You've heard it in this courtroom.
I don't know exactly. I don't know exactly, but in close time into Bubba coming out of those woods with the chicken, I got up and took the chicken from him.
Okay. Let me ask you this. Were the dogs barking and carrying on or going out into the woods or acting like they sensed somebody was around that they didn't know?
Were the dogs acting like there was somebody around that they didn't know?
Yeah, like dogs do.
No.
They weren't.
There was nobody around that the dogs didn't know.
Okay. Dogs didn't, to your indication, sense anything out of the ordinary. They were just chasing after the guinea.
There was nobody else around.
All right. Good.
For them to sense.
You've heard the kennel video. Would you agree with me that it lasts for about 50 seconds?
I agree with that.
So it would have ended around 8:45 and 45 seconds. Would you agree with that?
I do agree with that.
Did you have the chicken out of Bubba's mouth at the end of the kennel video, or did it take longer than that?
You know, I can't remember exactly when in the video he came up with the chicken, but I would have had the chicken out of his mouth within 10, 15 seconds of Maggie saying he's got a chicken.
All right. And so then what did you do?
I put the chicken up.
All right. How long did that take? Did you get out of the golf cart to do that?
I did.
All right. And you had to go walk to where it was?
Well, yeah. I mean, a few feet, but I did that, yes.
All right. So how long did that take?
Seconds.
We're at 8:46 now. How long did that take?
Seconds.
Just seconds? All right. And what did you do after that?
Got back on the golf cart.
Mm-hmm. And what did you do after that?
I left.
You left?
Now,
Just
did I
jumped
leave?
on the golf cart and left?
Well, that's what I was getting ready to say. Did I get on the golf cart and leave that second? Probably not. But did I get on the golf cart and leave very quickly after that? I did.
Okay, yeah, I think you testified yesterday. I got out of there.
I did.
Why'd you get out of there so quick, Mr. Murdaugh?
Because it was chaotic, it was hot, and I was getting ready to do exactly what I didn't want to do.
You were getting ready to do what you didn't want to do.
That's correct.
Yeah.
I was getting ready to sweat. I was getting ready to work. I went back to the air conditioner.
So did you say goodbye, according to your new story?
Did I say goodbye?
Yeah. Did you talk to them at all, or did you just get the chicken, put it on there, jump on there, and just take off?
I wouldn't have just gone off. I mean, I would have said, I'm leaving.
Okay.
Did I say goodbye or bye?
And again, go ahead.
I mean, there would have been some, there would have been some exchange. I'm not staying here.
Well, what was that exchange? I mean, you've had such a photographic memory about these news stories. What happened here?
That's not, I can't tell you the exact words.
You don't remember your conversation after you put that chicken up? Did y'all talk about the chicken?
No, I don't think we did.
Did you talk with Paul about Cash's tail?
After the chicken?
Yeah.
No, I know I didn't do that.
Did you tell Maggie I'm going to go check on him?
At that point, no, I don't
Did you
think
tell
I did.
Maggie, it's hot out here, think I'll go back?
I certainly would have said something to that effect.
All right. So, unlike everything else with the news story, you just can't recall what that would have been.
Well, I mean, you're making that categorization. I think there's other things about that I can't remember. But if the question is, can I remember exactly what words I used when I gave Maggie some salutation when I'm leaving, I can't tell you what those were.
All right.
But it would have been something to the effect of, I'm leaving.
All right. Okay. But you would concede that there was at least some conversation, that you wouldn't have just put the chicken on there and ran back to the golf cart and taken off. Correct?
Without talking to Maggie, I would have never done that.
All right. All right. So let's, you want to say a minute? Does that sound about right?
A minute for what?
To have just whatever interaction it took for you to then, according to your news story, drop back to.
No, sir. It wouldn't have taken me a minute. It would have been. It would have been. I'm leaving. I'll see you in a minute.
Okay. So 30 seconds.
I don't think it would have taken 30 seconds, but I mean, I'm fine with you using whatever time you want to apply.
Well,
but I don't think
I'm just
it would have
asking
taken that
about
long.
real life here and how people interact with one another, Mr. Murdaugh. I mean, so what you're telling this jury, I call you're fuzzy on these kind of details, is that you jetted down there, you dealt with the chicken, and jetted right back.
No, sir. No, sir. I didn't jet down there, and I didn't jet back. I got up after Maggie asked me to leave. After Maggie asked me to go with her, and I didn't. I got up. I went and got on a golf cart. I drove down there. I did what I did. I said I'm leaving or something to those words, and I went back.
All right. Well, if it's about 8:46, if the kennel video ends at 8:45 and 45 seconds, and it's about 8:46, we at least concede that maybe it was about a minute before you got on that golf cart and headed back. Just reasonable real life.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think it was that long, but maybe, sure.
All right. So.
But I don't think it was that long. I mean,
All right, well, how long
exactly
do you think
what
it
I
was,
thought
Mr.
was going to be
Murdaugh?
going on at that kennel, why I didn't want to go there to begin with, is exactly what was going on.
Yeah. Well, I get that.
And I left.
Are these also convenient facts in your news story that have to fit with the timeline now that that evidence has been thrown in your face?
No, sir.
Does that sound like real life to you, that you jet down there and jet back, Mr. Murdaugh?
Mr. Waters, as I just told you, I didn't get on my golf cart and jet down there. I didn't jet back.
The reason why you have to be
Hang
so
on now,
fuzzy
Mr.
about
Waters.
these
Just a second.
details.
Mr. Waters, hang on.
Just answer before another question is presented.
Yes, sir.
I'm
Just a
answering your
moment.
question.
Just a moment. Are you responding to the last question?
Yes, sir. I'm responding to your question, and you're using words that I'm not using. And that's your
Do you agree
categorization.
I'm entitled to ask my questions to you, sir?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I'm going to answer them. All I'm saying is I'm taking issue with the manner in which you're changing what I'm saying.
So you disagree this is a new story? You disagree with that characterization?
Yes, this is the first time that this is being told openly.
And you disagree to my characterization that you've got a photographic memory about the details that have to fit now that you know these facts, but you're fuzzy on the other stuff that complicates that. You disagree with that?
I do disagree with that. I think that I have a good memory about a lot of things on this.
How about this? We got the Kimmel video ending at 8:45:45. So just to take care of the chicken, put it up. I was going to say 8:47, but somewhere around there. I think you said somewhere around there. Is that fair? Just to do whatever you need to do and get on that cart before you head back.
The kennel video ended at 8:45?
In 45 seconds.
8:46. It certainly could have been 8:47 before I left out of there.
Okay.
I think it was sooner than that, but it could have been.
All right. That's 60 seconds. And 75 seconds, correct? After it ends.
If it ends at 8:45 and 45 seconds, it's a minute and 15 seconds.
And you characterized it yesterday as I got out of there, right?
That is exactly what I did.
All right. So if we're at 8:47, I think you said, giving you the benefit of the doubt, it's 2 minutes to get up back to the house, correct?
Approximately.
All right. And when you got back to the house, where'd you park the golf cart?
Same place I'd gotten it from, right where Mark Ball testified that it was.
All right. And what door did you go in?
I would have gone in the front door.
And if you left around 8:47, and it took about 2 minutes to get up to the house, what time would that make it, Mr. Murdaugh?
If I left at 8:47, and if it took me 2 minutes, that would make it 8:49.
8:49. And you testified you went inside and the TV's on, right?
I did go inside, and the TV was on.
Okay. And you laid down, is that right?
I did.
All right. Before you said you'd been napping for an hour or so, or napping that entire time, but now you laid down on the couch?
That's correct.
All right. And maybe dozed for a second,
Maybe.
according to your new story? How long did you doze?
If I dozed, extremely short time.
Extremely short time? Because you would agree with me that at 9:02, you're up and moving, according to the data.
I agree that according to that data, my phone's recording steps at whatever time it is, 9:02 something.
How long did it take you, if you were at the house at 8:49, how long before you went and laid on the couch?
I would have gone straight to the couch, probably. I may have gone by the sink, or I may have gotten a spit cup, but it would have been basically straight to the couch.
Straight to the couch.
Yes, sir.
And you're telling this jury that that's what happened, and you were back at the house at 8:49, and you lay down on the couch and dozed for a second, and then you were up with more steps in a shorter time period than you had done all day.
Well, I mean, your number is 8:49. What I'm telling this jury is that I went down there, and when I took that chicken from Bubba, I would have said something to Mags. I got back on that golf cart, and I drove back to my house. After getting back to my house, I went inside, and in short order, I went to the couch. That's what I'm telling this jury.
Did you go anywhere else in the house?
Mr. Waters, I can't tell you specifically about that. I don't think so, but I may have.
Did you have that tan blackout and a 12-gauge shotgun on that golf cart when you drove down there?
No.
You didn't?
No.
Did you see them when you were down there?
No.
No. So we got you back around 8:49, and you're leaving at 9:02, correct? And you didn't see any weapons down there. You just happened to be back there. You didn't hear anything at all. Did you hear anything at all, Mr. Murdaugh, during that time period?
No, I did not.
You didn't? Didn't you tell law enforcement that you thought you heard them pull up? Didn't you tell law enforcement that?
I did think they had pulled up.
All right, so that was that. You did think that?
Yes.
All right. So now you're saying there was a car pulling up?
No.
You didn't testify to that yesterday, did you, in your new version of events that
No, I don't.
construct?
Mr. Waters, I don't believe there was a car pulling up.
Okay. But that's what you told law enforcement, didn't you?
No, I told law enforcement that I thought they had pulled up.
Okay. All right. But you're saying you couldn't hear blackout shots, supposedly, but you could hear that, correct?
I didn't say I couldn't hear blackout shots, but I'm saying that I thought when I got up from taking a nap, if I took a nap, but when I got up from laying down, as I was getting ready to go to my mom's, there was a point in time where I thought Maggie and Paul had come back.
You also told them that you thought you heard a wildcat, but maybe it was a person or something like that as well?
No, that's not what I said.
What did you say then?
I said when I went outside that there's a house cat that's gone wild, and he hangs around. He goes from hanging around the shop, goes from hanging around the house, different times. You might, and there'll be times you don't see him. And he had been around the house. And when I went outside, I believe that cat was over there.
Okay. And you made a point of mentioning that to law enforcement.
I never thought it was a person.
All right. But you made a point of mentioning that to law enforcement, correct?
In the course of discussing it, I did tell them that.
But you never told them all this new story that you've constructed in light of this trial. Is that correct?
I did not tell them that I went to the kennel. I lied about that.
And at the same time, you also looked at this jury and tried to tell them that you had been cooperative in this investigation.
Other than lying to them about going to the kennel, I was cooperative in every aspect of this investigation.
Very cooperative, except for maybe the most important fact of all, that you were at the murder scene with the victims just minutes before they died. Right?
I did not tell them that I went to the kennel.
We'll take a break at this time for about 15 minutes, talking to the jury. Please go to the jury room. Please not discuss the case.
That wraps up segment number 1 of our continuing coverage in the trial of Alex Murdaugh. There is much more to come. Be sure to press subscribe and keep it here. I'm Tony Bruschi. Stay with us.